accomplished something serious. Finally, no audio problems on my end. Yay! Yay! So I'm using the good mic. I figured out how to get it working. It's working now. Everything is good. Everything is good. Except my coffee is out of reach. My coffee is no longer out of reach. So this is going to be a two-part session. Kerbal, Eric Mattis, our aerospace correspondent, is going to be joining me toward the end of this session. And we're going to be talking about CosmoQuest's journey to Bennu, about what we accomplished. And we're not going to ever recreate mapping it. I am going to, once we hit our first big financial milestone that allows us to upgrade our Citizen Science Builder software, I'm going to tie the database in so you can revisit your personal journey. But we're not going to do any more mapping of Bennu. We'll get to that. But we are going to say, hey, let's fly to Bennu using Kerbal Space Program. Eric's going to talk about that. I've been really letting him take the leadership on that project. And I want to tell you about Bennu and how CosmoQuest got involved in it. And Hannah, I've seen you there throughout the day. I hope you're still there. She sent me this fabulous picture, and I can see better if I put these on my face. She sent me this fabulous image earlier of having the stream up on an old school CRT. And as a child of the 80s and 90s, that warmed my heart and hurt my back. So Hannah's been part of the CosmoQuest community for a long time. And about 10 years ago, when she was a graduate student at the University of Arizona, she reached out and said, so I heard you like citizen science. How do you feel about rocks? And she knew that I liked citizen science because she'd been there as part of CosmoQuest, part of mapping other worlds in the past. And she was now a NASA-funded scientist at the University of Arizona, working on a mission called OSIRIS-REx that was going to fly out to this asteroid that appeared as a dot on the screen of researchers. And I'm making sure everything, yes, you are seeing the dot. And so she had this mission, and she's there in the chat, which is amazing. And OSIRIS-REx had this insane timeline to go from the mission sending the data back to Earth and the research team needing to find a safe place for the mission to go down and grab a sample to bring back to Earth. And the timing of it was really bad because of where it fit in the school year. And she asked, can CosmoQuest help? And I said yes. And from conversations to negotiations to launch, it actually took years. But then one day I found myself in the SIUE parking lot at 4 a.m. Launch was the next day. My team was driving from St. Louis to Cape Canaveral in one long go. This wasn't our original plan. We'd hoped to leave the day before, but one of my students' profs was like, no, my class is more important than your launch, and he was not going to be swayed. So we left super early in the morning and stopped at Waffle House to celebrate the dawn, and took the second highway to the Cape and drove on straight towards evening. And the next day, nothing prepared me for the launch. This wasn't the first launch I'd seen, but it was the first launch that I was part of. When the sound waves shake your body as your spacecraft fires off into the sky, a rush hits you. And from that first moment of liftoff until confirmation that it had made it to space okay, you feel every single emotion. And I don't care how tiny my role in the mission was in that moment. That mission was my mission. And I felt every emotion. As I watched, there was the normal feeling of, I want to do the science. I want to see the asteroid up close. This is such new tech. Please let it work. We're testing new things. What if it doesn't work? And then there was that feeling of, please don't blow up. I like my job. That last feeling isn't one that gets talked about nearly enough, because if the mission blows up, you don't get paid. And all the effort you've done is literally blown up. But that day, it was blue skies and green status lights and easy flying. And then it was time to get to work. Our part of the mission was to write software that would make it possible to mark out the locations of rocks and boulders and craters of everything on Bennu. Now, the problem was we didn't actually have any images of Bennu. So we improvised. It's like when you're putting together a PowerPoint presentation and you're waiting for a colleague to get you a figure, and you just put in something that is good enough to communicate the idea until you have the final data. And Bennu wasn't the first small near-Earth object to be visited and sampled by a spacecraft. That title went to Itokawa, which was visited by the Hayabusa 1 mission. Then it was just Hayabusa. Now we know it's Hayabusa 1. And so we used Itokawa in all of our planning to map Bennu. And when the Hayabusa mission went to Itokawa, they found a little bit of everything. It has smooth plains of dust and rocky regions dominated by car-sized boulders. It even has textbook craters so pristine they look like they're out of a simulation. Itokawa is a dream of a world, and my team used Itokawa images everywhere in our software where an image of Bennu would one day be found. And this is what our original software looked like. When asked, how long do you think it will take to map Bennu, we tested it with Itokawa images. We had a bunch of students and volunteers use the software to trace craters, to draw a line along the long axis of boulders, to mark the locations of rocks. And it took 2 to 3 minutes per image, and we figured we'd have 5,000 images of Bennu, and with a few thousand volunteers, we could be done in a week, even if we had multiple people look at every image and mark every image. The Itokawa images had maybe a couple dozen rocks, maybe a couple of boulders here and there. Easy peasy. This was exciting. We were going to be on schedule. Based on assuming that Bennu would look like Itokawa. And you know what they say about people who make assumptions. On New Year's Eve 2019, OSIRIS-REx had a date with an asteroid. And that asteroid looked nothing like Itokawa. Is it possible to catfish yourself? I feel like we catfished ourselves. Bennu was not the space rock of our dreams. Of the smooth fields we'd imagined, OSIRIS-REx saw none. And you know what, Hannah, who is out there watching this right now? I don't actually like rocks. I really kind of hate rocks. And this is a rubble pile. If you were to imagine an interplanetary dump truck driving through our solar system with a back filled with gravel and boulders from the quarry and losing its load somewhere on its way to a construction site, what you're imagining, gravitationally barely held together, is Bennu. And at first glance, there was no safe place to grab a sample to bring back to Earth. And at second glance, there was still no safe place to grab a sample. And people who were not me were going to have to completely rewrite the safety requirements for this mission, taking into consideration the reality of this asteroid. And while that wasn't my problem was figuring out how to get people to map this asteroid. The average image of Bennu had a few hundred rocks, a few dozen boulders. Craters were just areas where the rocks were mashed down a little bit more. Instead of taking 2 to 3 minutes per image, it was like taking 20 minutes to an hour and a half. Like, I did not want to map everything in these images. When the day came to open our software to the public, thousands of people showed up. It was exactly as we expected, and happily they said, I am here to map. And I get it. I know why everyone showed up. Like, how cool is it to be able to say, I volunteered my time to help NASA find a safe place to grab a scientific sample to bring back to Earth. And it's amazing. And of course people were going to show up. But that doesn't mean they were going to stay. They came. They did the tutorial, which I kept with those dreamy, easy Itakawa images. And then they clicked through to the first Bennu image, and about half left after seeing, but before mapping, their first image. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And Annie Wilson, if you're out there listening, you were one of the best humans helping me get this community engaged. We made memes and we started Twitch streaming. And we took turns coming on Twitch and mapping Bennu while challenging all of you to join us. And it turns out that video game players and people who are used to grinding away in game for riches are some of the right people to go to when you have a world like Bennu. Mining diamonds in Minecraft is actually a whole lot more tedious than mapping these rocks. Less chance of dying, too. And Bennu doesn't even have zombies or creepers to wreck your day and wreck what you just finished doing. Bennu just has grateful scientists like me who are so glad all of you showed up. I didn't get a lot of sleep while we were mapping. Of the folks that stayed past the tutorial, most did maybe 10 images, maybe. It took more than 1 week to finish this project. And thank God for all of you who showed up to hate map Bennu. And you see a small, and there's music in this video. Hold on. Grammarly, stop. Go away, Grammarly. No, go back. Okay, we're apparently, let me try that again. We're just going to look at this picture of Bennu. So you see a small and wonderful cadre of humans spent their days hating Bennu, hate mapping rocks, and driven by hate, which is sometimes how things get accomplished. They did the work they needed, we needed, Osiris Rex needed. Because Bennu was not going to be allowed to win for 92 days. That's all it was, 92 days. What an amazing period that seems so much longer. For 92 days, we mapped. And we found people who'd grind away with us, clicking on rocks, tracing the lengths of boulders, outlining craters. We did science, we hated Bennu, and we found a community. And we found the safe places. In those 92 days, nearly 4,000 people made over 14 million annotations of rocks, boulders, and craters. The site selection team used this data and data from other teams to identify 4 potentially safe enough sites to land. And on December 12, 2019, on my birthday, we learned Osiris-Rex would be touching its sample arm into the rocks of Nightingale Crater, a feature that had been mapped by 64 of our humans. And I went to Disney World. My job was done. And I have to admit, I was with Susie and Annie. We were in Florida because we meant to see a whole bunch of rocket launches, and somehow we ended up in Florida the one week there were no rocket launches. And so we visited the mouse, as I really, really like to do. And for me, that was where the story ended. This one also has music. We're going to look at this one. So that nice, gentle approach, that nice, gentle touch it, grab rocks, go away. This was what we dreamed of. With the sample site selected, the plan was that Osiris-Rex would just gracefully float down, grab a sample, and then bounce away. And you'd think that we would have learned about what happens when you make assumptions, but sometimes you just can't learn. And this is what actually happened. Biff! All right, so arm went down. Arm went 20 centimeters into Bennu. It turns out that Osiris-Rex, because it has so little gravity, it's able to hold itself together, but it holds itself together with about the consistency of a ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese. But at Chuck E. Cheese, there are bodily fluids also in the mix that probably make those balls a little bit stickier than the ones making up Bennu. This was not what we expected, and the arm just kept going into the surface. And it is because the retro boosters fired that it didn't go all the way into Bennu. Yeah. The massive sample arm, the container, all of it ended up full of rocks. And on September 24th, 2023, a sample capsule returned to Earth, and our mission under the new name Osiris Apex, and I have no part in Osiris Apex, it headed out to a new space rock that needed exploration. And that sample went down to the Lunar and Planetary Institute's sample lab down at NASA Johnson. And all this stuff that you see, that's over 70 grams of material. And that is extra material that just came along for the ride. It was hoped that the entire mission would bring back 60 grams. So just in excess material that jammed itself into the different parts, they got more than what the original goal of the mission was in terms of sample that was returned. This is why we were able to so rapidly get samples of Bennu at places like the Smithsonian Museum. Now, the thing is, when you look at this image, all those screws that you're seeing, those are protecting the actual pristine sample that we were waiting on. And unfortunately, it had cold fused itself together. It really did not want to open. And they had to figure out how to open it in a clean room, clean chamber, like glove container protect. It was a pain. Creativity is involved in science, so much creativity. And they were eventually able to manufacture tools that would not damage anything and would open the sample container. And inside of the absolutely jammed closed onto the sample container was not 60 grams, was not 70 grams like what came along extra for the ride. It was 249 grams of asteroid bits. 70% of the sample is getting saved for later, hoping that our technology will improve over time, new questions will be come up with over time. And so far, analysis of this sample has found high carbon content and water. The science was and is amazing with this mission, and you made this possible, those of you who helped us map Bennu. And those of you who weren't here for Bennu, that's fine. We're back to mapping the moon. We're working with Kirby Runyon, who will be with us tomorrow. We're working to raise funding to port our citizen science software. We are looking to fund scientists to continue doing these projects. This was an amazing ride. And on my birthday in December 2019, as we went to Disney World instead of rocket launches, none of us really could have imagined what was coming next. And what was coming next was a pandemic. And it's been a wild time. And Bennu was the last rock that we studied for a long time. And the two citizen science projects that we have up right now that are done in association with CosmoQuest aren't part of CosmoQuest because they're federally funded. And I made some choices that I want to explain. So on January 22nd, 2020, 2 nights after I had returned from the American Astronomical Society meeting in Hawaii, I lay in bed, jet-lagged, unable to sleep. I was doom scrolling Twitter. And this last couple of nights at the meeting in Hawaii, my collaborators, my friends, Sandlin, who I've mentioned so many times, we'd been talking in our hotel room about being so glad we were getting out of Hawaii, hopefully ahead of this weird flu that had broken out in China and was inevitably heading our way. And we were just hoping to get out of Hawaii, get home, get through it. How little we had known what was coming. That night, as I doom scrolled, before doom scrolling was a phrase, I learned that a city of 11 million people was being sealed off as it was realized that if that virus was to escape, China and our world would face a horror like nothing humanity had experienced since the Spanish flu 100 years earlier. Now, we know now that the drastic measures that were taken in Wuhan saved Wuhan, but the virus did escape. It did make it to the rest of the world. And as the weeks passed, as the virus and the lockdowns propagated, people in the CosmoQuest community began to talk less about science and more about their fears. The COVID pandemic happened at a really weird time for our programs. At the end of AAS, we had taken down all of our citizen science software to do a big, complete refresh. We had just made those 14 million annotations of rocks at Bennu, and everyone was a bit done with mapping. And we needed to do a major update. And so we were plugging away in the background, but every conversation seemed to fall back to, do you know anyone who's sick? And we knew Annie. Annie was sick. What are the shortages there? Was a conversation we kept having. Are you okay? There was one point where I got Ms. Britt Kitten's address so I could send her a thermometer because she was sick and didn't have a thermometer. Our development team at the time was 100% volunteer. And currently it's just me. And we didn't have any funders. And to be honest, our science teams were all too busy just trying to figure out how to homeschool their kids and deal with not being able to go to their campuses. And so in that moment, in February of 2020, I had a choice. I could do what I was supposed to do and try and drive my team of volunteers to work on software so people could continue our never-ending efforts to map the moon, to map Mars, to map Mercury. Or I could do what I did. I could pull together a community and ask, are you okay? How can we help? And none of us were okay. Folks were struggling with isolation as they went into work from home situations and school from home situations. There were a lot of people living alone who suddenly found themselves with absolutely no human connections. Just us on the internet. Adulting got so hard. People were struggling to get up in the morning, to go to bed at night, and just to find the energy to do simple things like taking a shower and putting on something other than pajamas. And people were afraid they would get sick and die alone. And by people, I cannot hold myself separate. I may share my home with a husband, and back then we also had an international graduate student living with us. But that whole failing to sleep and living in pajamas, I'm just as guilty as everyone. So we laid out a plan of purposeful compassion, the mod community here at CosmoQuest. In our community of people who learned to do science, we knew no one could function. No one could learn or do science if they were all too busy being angry and afraid. This was the first lesson I had learned as a teacher. No one can learn when they're hurting. And it was the most important lesson in facing 2020 and beyond. We put the humans first. We built ourselves homes and even a solar system in Minecraft, which all of you are invited to become part of. It's still there. We're still building. We talked about the latest science news. We attempted to do a daily TV show. We had regrets. We remembered, as long as everyone leans in, no one will fall down. We learned how to survive. Except not all of us did. This is the thing graduate school in 10 years as a professor never prepared me for. As the leaders of communities, we are teachers and mentors and problem solvers. Sometimes we are the people with the emergency phone numbers. Sometimes we're the ones who have to call a family member and say, I'm sorry. I don't know how to tell you that I think they're gone. I know they live alone, but I need you to know they were never alone. And when Paranor died, I had to call his brother. And that changed me for the better, because it forced me to look at everything and realize we are so much more than the science we create. We lost two people. We lost Fenmil. We lost Paranor, and we later lost Fenmil. But we also saw one wedding and so many rebirths as people have reinvented themselves. You know who they are. Jessica, if you're out there, I see you. Walker, I see you. And I'm so proud of all of you who are out there reinventing yourselves. And this reinvention. In a way, it all started with one project when it comes to CosmoQuest's reinvention, what you're meeting today, what we're presenting to you today. Here are the ugly details. We originally wrote CosmoQuest in PHP. As the project grew, we adapted to the Laravel framework. So some of our tools could leverage someone else's libraries, but students don't learn PHP and they really don't learn frameworks, and we were hiring a lot of students. So at one point we switched everything to Python. Python is terrible. And when we came out the other side of Bennu Mappers, I was done. We recognized Python was slow and clunky and just not very efficient, and web programming had evolved. And so when we were selected in 2022 to work on a new project, our Mars Mosaics project, which is currently out of data and being worked on, that project is cursed. There have been so many deaths with that project. So many, literally. Family members just keep dying, and a car most recently bit the dust. Anyways, when we were selected, we decided it was time to go back to our PHP roots. Development was slow. No, that's a lie. Development, again, it was cursed. First, our PA's dad was killed in a terrible car wreck. Then one of our student programmers lost their dad, and that was just the beginning. But somehow it actually turned out that being delayed was a grace. Here's the thing you need to know. CosmoQuest is home to a vibrant queer community. We have a lot of people with disabilities, and if I'm being honest, we have a rich community of people who are both queer and disabled. And we have conversations about diversity, inclusion, fear, disability, bullying, ethics, philosophy. These are just part of what we all think about every day as we look at the news, look at the changing world, and live true to our bodies and ourselves. And these are the things we talk about late at night as we map out other worlds and rebuild them in Minecraft. And the Monday after Trump was elected, we lost a trans member of our community to suicide. We lost Fenmil. And I completely understand the decision she made. I hate it, but I understand it. And so that was November of 2024. I pushed forward writing code, trying to move past our curse, trying to move past the politics of the moment. It sometimes felt like nothing was going right. My institution was having IT issues. A second grant I got to do, a different citizen science project, our lunar mapping project. It was slow getting awarded. Nothing was going right when Christmas 2024 came up and things got put on pause. And I have to admit, I just wanted to hide under a rock. But there was something in me that broke and got angry, and angry can power change. On January 20th, as I attended an online meeting and as I watched DEI restrictions come down and my friends began to see their content get turned off, as people left a telecon we were absolutely not supposed to leave because things were falling apart in the world on January 20th already, I realized I could not launch federally funded projects on cosmoquest.org because it might mean having to take offline our support of diverse communities, our support of our queer and trans brothers, siblings, and theys and z's, and I'll screw your pronouns up now and then, but I'll try and learn all of them. That's who we are as a community. And I could not change that. I will not change that. So I called my collaborators and I started writing new software from scratch. I set up a new URL, mappers.psi.edu, and I moved beyond CosmoQuest to create a federally funded site that has no issues abiding by whatever executive order might be coming our way. And this is where it became CosmoQuest and beyond. This is where World Mappers ended up on a completely different URL. And this is where today we still have a vibrant queer, a vibrant disabled, a vibrant, diverse community of people. We don't care who you love, only that you find love in this world. That's who we are. And in this past year, you've seen a whole lot less of me. I haven't had the time, the energy to hang out in Discord the way I used to, because I've been working my brains out to take everything that we already had done and redo it from scratch, so no one could say, oh, you just rebranded it. It's still CosmoQuest, so you still have to change CosmoQuest. I literally started from scratch, started in new languages. I mean, it's still PHP backend, but now it's a front end in Vue. And now we're trying to figure out, how do we move forward? I have 100 days left of federal funds. Not 100 days, 100 hours. I'll be out of federal funds to do citizen science by January 1. I want to bring citizen science home to CosmoQuest, where it started in 2012, doing more complex problems, being the only community that has created high-quality publishable crater mapping data. That's you. You've done that. And so we are now, with CosmoQuest, a place for independent research, education, news, gameplay, and community. And that's what we're building. We did amazing things with Bennu that showed me what we can accomplish as a community. You inspire me every day, all of you out there. And I want to be true to you. All right. Eric, I don't know if you're out there. Eric is hopefully going to join me. If you're in a Zoom room and I'm not, you're in the wrong Zoom room, or I'm in the wrong Zoom room and I don't know which. We have, and let me see if I can pull up our website. We have, by which I know I can pull up our website, I just need to go to it. So if you go to the website for cosmoquest.org/donate, it will land you on this page. Off to the right is our Hangout-a-thon. And I haven't gotten the links added everywhere else. Yes, Eric, this is the Bennu Journey session. You were going to introduce KSP. Eric forgot, and that's okay. I totally changed the name of the session on him, and it was probably deeply mysterious. This is on me. I accept that. So can you come on and introduce the KSP project? Because I've played KSP once, and it was a humiliating experience where I was so terrible because I both was terrible at figuring out Windows and terrible at KSP, and it was terrible squared. So you, whose username is Kerbal, if you can please rescue me from myself right now. You may not be ready to. This is on me. All right, so there is a KSP contest that we will bring up at some point. Oh, there he is. There he is. I need to put a microphone, not a microphone. I need to put. You can't hear me. Can you say something?
Something.
Yay. Did you hear him, audience? You can't see him. Hold on. Let me fix this. Now they can see you. I love your background. What video game is that?
This is the album art for the band Glory Hammer. It's an album, Return to the Kingdom of Fife. That's Fife exploding in the background.
All right. That is.
No apologies to any actual Scotland people.
That is amazing. All right. Um, okay, you're a bit quiet. I should be able to fix that. Loop back audio. I can make you a little bit louder there. Where is loop back? I have so many screens. Whoa, that was horrifying for a moment. Okay, you're back. Okay, we should have you a little bit louder now.
I am. I realized that my white balance was fluctuating, so I turned on my camera thing.
Okay,
That
awesome.
does stuff.
Okay, I am going to ask you to be a bit louder. And I'm here snuggling the robot, which still hasn't been named. I'm enjoying snuggling the robot down at the bottom of the screen. So, can you tell us about the Kerbal contest?
Sure. This is a contest that we're doing for this year's Hangout-a-thon, and we're using a mod pack created by someone that Pamela is friends with. I don't know. I was
They
looking.
reached out to us saying, "Hi, we'd like to do this with CosmoQuest," and I said, "Yes, I don't play Kerbal. Here, meet Eric."
Okay. Yeah. Well, so that happened. So I came up with some rules that are on the website.
It's on the screen with you.
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
But the, they created a mod pack for us to use that has Bennu in it in the game, which is pretty cool. So I haven't had time to make an attempt myself, but I'm sure our community is creative enough to come up with something. And
So,
you
so
don't have to we don't have to have an attempt done by the end of the hat. We will
now,
do something later.
so be here, hang out, have fun during Hangout-a-thon. If you have anything done that we can show the world tomorrow night, as we're doing our last couple of hours, which are mostly gameplay focused, then you're welcome to come join and share what you've done. But we're gonna come back. The full moon in January is on January 4th, the first Friday of the month, which is what we were originally heading towards is January 3rd. So we're going to do a due date of January 3rd for the competition. And yeah, I can drop the link into chat. And oh, that was the wrong key combo on this computer. And we will be sharing things on stream that Sunday. So that is January 4th, 5th, the first Sunday in January. We're going to be sharing things out. Now, what are some of the crazy things you've done with Kerbal over the years? And I know you have strong opinions on the latest version of Kerbal that has come into existence.
Uh, I strapped together 64 nuclear engines and it blew up the launch pad. But it got to space.
Was it in one piece when it got to space?
Yes.
That's actually kind of amazing. That okay. So when you blow up a anything on an actual launch pad, it often does spectacular launch pad damage. We recently witnessed this with SpaceX. What happens in KSP when you blow up on the ground or blow up the ground, as the case may be?
Uh, you go back to the Space Center screen and there's a button to rebuild it, and it gets rebuilt in a nice little animation, and you can go out and launch more rockets.
That's cool. And like so it allows you to see the damage you've done and then allows you to
Yeah.
repair. Okay, that's kind of absolutely awesome. I appreciate this. I really, really appreciate this. Now, there's differences between the mod pack and the normal KSP game. Um, can you explain some of the differences?
They should be. Well, I told them to do pretty much Zoc scale and just add the asteroid
Okay.
because their first branch was using their first concept was to use a real solar system with the true physics simulation mod called Principia, which adds proper physics, which I I I I know our people, our community, and that would be too complicated.
I love it.
I've been playing KSP for like a decade, and I know like maybe half a dozen people that use mods of that level.
That's fair. That is absolutely fair. Um, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask. Um, Bennu is a rock that we have blown up in Minecraft. You were part of that. It is a rock that we actually have a Nightbot command to curse at. Um, does KSP, once you get to it, actually give you any ability to destroy it? Like, is this the.
Yes,
Okay, tell us more. I need to understand more.
it's a part. If you break it, it'll explode.
Will you get shrapnel of Bennu?
No, it's just like a not shrapnel. It's still just like poof.
Well, that's a thing. That's a thing. All right. So, any more parting words before we work on spinning things up for the next session?
Uh, we have started work in Minecraft on this year's build.
What rockets need to be done?
We're not. I looked at the rockets that we have, and I think we have all the rockets that we should have,
There's a
but
new
we don't
Glen?
have. Yeah, there's New Glen. Somebody built a New
Okay.
Glen last time, but we don't have any launch pads, so we're building launch pads.
That's cool. That's very cool. Are you even going to construct chopsticks?
Uh, they won't move, but we can make
Well,
them.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So, to go ahead and join Minecraft, go ahead over to the CosmoQuest Discord, bang Discord in the chat to get the URL, and um, ask to be whitelisted. We run Java, and yeah, that's what you need to know. All right. I need to get things handed over to Allie for the next session. I'm really enjoying cuddling my little robot friend over here. Thank you, Eric. And thank you,
Thank you.
everyone who's out there. I'm going to roll them
Rockets.
rockets. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.